signal now for when I'm needed. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning to them.
Yes, sir. Welcome to Beyond the Bat Signal. I'm your host, Domenic and Nika. Join me as we dive into the depths of Batman's lore, dissecting the rogues gallery and uncovering the stories of our iconic vigilante known as the Dark Knight. The Beyond the Bat Signal is a proud member of Batman Podcast Network, hosted by Batman on Film. Visit their website to see all the shows, including your very own, us. There's quite a few. We got the Batman Book Club that's on there. You got even Peter Arvera's Spider-Man Coalition. Yes, a Spider-Man podcast on a Batman website. But you know what? He always injects a little bit of Batman in there, and he's a recognizable voice. So check it out. BPN has a ton of websites or in podcasts that they have on there. Now, thank you very much for tuning into today's episode where we're going to discuss the finale, issue number 10 of Batman The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, issue 10, as I said. But before we begin, I want to thank each of our listeners, especially new ones. Welcome. For one, taking the time to hear me. I don't know. Hope I entertain you, I guess. Now, for those of you that want to catch brand new episodes, you can basically listen to me anywhere you listen to podcasts. Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Heck, you can even go to the YouTube channel because we got something on there as well. Now, if you want to follow along on what we do, please follow on X/Twitter at Beyond Bat Signal. And if you like what we're doing, please consider giving us a 5-star review, rate and review. It's completely free. Takes 2 minutes of your time. And it goes such a long way to supporting the show. Also, to rate and review, please do it on Apple or Spotify. And yeah, it allows our show to be seen. Now, let's get into Batman The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, issue 10. This is a bittersweet issue. As it pretty much closes the entire book of the Long Halloween saga. To start things off, I got cover A, drawn by Tim Sale. And when I was looking at this, of course I'm going to stick to the Tim Sale. Listen, in the end, this was a Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale story. And when I was looking, I was like, is this the first time Tim Sale drew Harley Quinn? So when you guys are looking at the cover, you'll notice that they've got Grundy, Catwoman, Two-Face, Scarecrow, Riddler, Penguin. They got the iconic Jack-o'-lantern of the Long Halloween Jack-o'-lantern. And you got Joker. And then beside is Harley Quinzel, which is Tim Sale's interpretation. And then you got Poison Ivy and Two-Face. No Robin though, but it doesn't matter. There's all the villains in here, and the one that, as far as I know, have not seen Harley Quinn pop up in anything, and found that pretty interesting. But glad we got an interpretation from the legendary Mr. Sale to include this in the final cover. I got some thoughts about this issue and about the whole series, and I think that's what I needed time to kind of think about what I wanted to say. So first and foremost, the issue, just all the issues were written by Jeff Loeb, and this particular one was illustrated by Matteo Scalera, a fellow Italian, with Dave Stewart and Richard Starkings, who is the lettering and designer. Sorry if I'm not sure if I said Dave Stewart, who's the colorist and has been the colorist on all of them. You still get that vibe of the Long Halloween. But yeah, like, you know, I guess we get right into, let's go over the book. It's going to be full spoilers ahead, and curious what you guys think afterwards. Leave a comment if you'd like, or shoot me any questions, email at beyondbadsignal@gmail.com. But let's get right into it. We got the Arkham Gates opening up with jack-o'-lanterns just going right through the pics, and it's setting the tone. You know, we got Batman and Robin taking off in the Batmobile, but and meeting up with Jim Gordon. And Gordon's obviously like, do you think we should have had a bit more help? And Batman's very confident. He's like, we have everyone we need. And Robin, who I think is drawn a bit more mature in this episode or this issue, and I like it. He's like, is that for me? And I'm like, oh, this guy, he's getting it. He's getting a Robin cycle. And as soon as I turn the page, you know, Batman's like, you know, like giving him a bit more responsibility, saying, you know, I assume you can handle this. So we're kind of left waiting, but we do get a sick 2-page spread of the villains on top and the mobsters on the bottom, and it is the mobs versus the freaks, and it's basically an all-out war. We have Two-Face dead center, and he is what it looks like, and you know, you got Grundy, you got Joker's drawn to me spectacularly, and you know, then you got this one guy on the mob side who's wearing what looks like a Joker mask, and it gives me the Dark Knight vibes at the opening scene, with one of those masks where they do the bank robbery. Definitely check it out, love it. And then you have another guy who's in a Batman mask, and it's like all out war between the freaks and the mob. Definitely a highlight for me, as I really do like how this was drawn. And then all of a sudden, guns come out and they start just firing. And so shots are fired, and Joker gets a nice shot, which looks like right through the arm. And his first reaction is not funny. Even Penguin gets shot off to the side of the arm, and doors are getting broken down. Then you have what kind of looks like Batman and Robin holding like either a bazooka or a gun, but that's not the case. It's like a gas gun. And he's like, Robin's just asking Batman, like, you know, isn't Riddler going to recognize what this stuff does? And Batman totally anticipates that he does, and he's counting on it. And basically, Batman in his internal dialogue is going through the process of, you know, tonight is the night where, like my father's patient, it's time to operate. And he keeps on being told, well, you know, you're on the wrong side. And I've been told this repeatedly by both sides, that I'm on the wrong side. But Batman is on the side of Gotham. He isn't on the side of freaks. He isn't on the side of the mob. He's on the side of Gotham, right beside Robin and right beside Jim Gordon. Anyway, when I looked at this panel, I'm like, are they using guns? And then as quickly as I read, they're not. They're using what looks like little gas grenades, and they shoot off. And sure enough, it's knockout gas of what they shoot. And who's the first one to announce that they know what it is? Well, Riddler, of course. And then you got Batman just like ready to face the mob. Batman's well aware that this mob is not scared of him. Batman looks like he has like a different gauntlet. Looks like steel gauntlets. I can't really tell, but the page before, they're black. Now they kind of look like a steel gray. Looks pretty sick. But I can't tell like if these are what they are, or if it just adds an extra little punch to who these guys are. But Batman gets into the fray of things and starts taking out the mob one by one. Jim Gordon is also shooting out shots fired. So it's basically a three-way war between Jim, Bats, and Robin versus the freaks in the mob. And shots are fired pretty much everywhere. And it is a fast-paced issue. But we get a panel of this boy wonder Robin cycle, and in every bit of its comic book glory does this look sick. Totally love it. And you got Robin flying through the streets with his bow, and it is a Robin cycle that is red with the R dead smack in the middle, and Robin recognizes that Batman's trusting him more, and right away he's like, I know he thinks I'm cocky, referring to Batman. Robin calls it, he's like, yeah, but I call it confidence, and this bike is so cool, I have to make sure I don't mess it up. And Robin doesn't. He stands out so well and takes care of his own. And yeah, he even takes out Joker. He's taking out a lot of the villains. Joker's got Batman at gunpoint, and Robin comes out and just takes Joker straight out. But Joker was saying to Batman, like, you kind of got a bulletproof something sewn into that getup, but your mouth, not so much. Which, as Batman fans, we all know that's like Batman's weak point is the mouth. There definitely is never going to be any bulletproof vest or anything to cover his mouth, and that's where the gun's pointing to. But yeah, Robin comes in and just completely takes out Joker, and he goes off a ledge, which looks like it's like, when Batman and Gordon have gone to go visit like a bunch of the Arkham inmates. So, and then like in the middle, it's like that big, huge opening. So Joker flies right over the gate and right onto the ground. And yeah, wow. So then Robin just goes, "Thank you, Robin." And Robin's just like, wait, Two-Face is still on the roof. You're going the wrong way. And then Batman's like, I know. But I think Robin was more floored that Batman said, "Thank you." I really do like how this entire issue has been drawn, but I will continue. So we have cool panels where Batman's holding a calendar, a date of October 31st. And this is where this all-out war is taking place. And it's October 31st. And I love how on it, just below the 31, you have the jack-o'-lantern with the bat symbol on it. Question, side note, because I think about this, and I did this for my Halloween pumpkin last year, didn't do it this year. How many of you guys have ever done the Batman the Long Halloween jack-o'-lantern? Anyone? I always find it so, and it's not even that difficult to do. Like my wife, she one time we did the Jack Skeleton jack-o'-lantern, and to do the teeth for that was such a pain in the butt. This one, on the other hand, a doozy. But I digress. Let's get back to this issue. So Batman's taking a visit to Calendar Man, and he's with Robin, and he's basically questioning him, saying like, you sent this to Commissioner Gordon, and I recognize a singular calendar page that was taped to your cell, this cell. You wanted us here tonight at Arkham. A change of circumstances. You switched sides. That's why you stayed in here, to stay safe from Falcone's men. The Calendar Man is being forgotten, Batman said. The fact is eating you alive, and if you want Holiday stopped, then you need to tell me who he or she is. And this gave me vibes of, the whole Dark Knight trilogy. Holiday is not a he or she, it's an idea. And that on any special day, a .22 caliber gun, such a little gun, could terrorize Gotham City. And I really believe, just like the Dark Knight trilogy, where Batman is a symbol, and like Ra's al Ghul says, you have to become an idea. And Batman is a symbol. Anyone can throw on them like a mask with a bat suit and just help save the city. It's the idea behind it. It's a symbol that can be incorruptible. And I think that that's the main theme throughout all of the Dark Knight trilogy, and that Bruce wants to drive home. That's why he gives John Blake the keys to the Batcave, the keys to the Batsuit. Anyway, so they have like this cool meeting with Calendar Man, and Batman is demanding a name. And here you go is where Calendar Man goes. It started with a partnership between two men who had nothing in common except that they hated each other. And Batman says Harvey Dent and Mario Falcone. And Calendar Man goes, two sides of a very different coin. And then Batman goes, making it all one side, both waiting for the other to betray them. One person knew them both. One person could bring them down together. One person, maybe even, who loved them both. And I was like, okay, so we already, as a reader, know that Gilda Dent was behind and she's Holiday. And, so here we have, then we go on to the next page where it says, after tonight, I'm leaving this asylum. And, as readers, we're kind of left to assume, that, well, hold on. I'm jumping ahead. But we got Holiday, and it looks like there's this sheet of paper being destroyed. And Holiday has the trench coat, the hat. And it says, destroying evidence is a crime against the law, crime doctor. And Catwoman shows up, and she's like, I came here from a medical file. Thorne, who's the guy who saved or kind of helped Two-Face or Harvey Dent throughout the surgery. And it's like, but I can see that you're up to something far more curious. And here's Holiday pointing a gun to Catwoman. It's like, scamper home, kitty. I know whose side you're on, who you are. Mario told me. And then boom, you have Catwoman just give a nice punch. 22 caliber flies out of the hand, and then there's Gilda Dent. She's like, get my files. That's what you're burning. And then Catwoman picks it up, and it says, Gilda Dent, and are you pregnant? And it's checked off as negative. So she was never pregnant. And I think, she just kind of said that to kind of throw everyone off, if you guys recall. I vaguely remember, but I just know that she kind of just said, I'm pregnant, before she was about to be discovered. And it kind of just threw everything off, and it just stopped when she told Harvey, like, whoa, okay. And it kind of gave Harvey a second, to think about it. So next page we get this mask flying off, and it's like, now who's the clown? She didn't even mean you. And boom, there's Harvey Dent with two guns in his hand, and he shoots him, meaning Dent or Two-Face shoots Falcone, and Falcone's dead. Has to be. He's just going boom, boom, boom. Batman gives him a nice right hook, and Two-Face just goes flying. And Two-Face is like, Bats, stop. I surrender. It's over. I'll confess to you whatever you need. And it almost seems like this is the Harvey Dent side that's coming through. And it's like Batman's just asking him, like, how can I trust you with anything that you say? And Dent goes, I killed Mario Falcone. You're all my witnesses. You can't charge Gilda. She acted in self-defense. And then we have a bow right to Gilda Dent's face, where Robin just has her against the wall. And it's like, anything I did was to be with Harvey. We're both two of a kind. And I really believe that there was Gilda Dent and Holiday, and I think that she also had her Two-Face persona, which I really believe, right? And I think the whole her being Gilda Dent was, I don't know if it would be like, her being Gilda Dent was that her being like in love with Harvey while Holiday was in love with Mario. I mean, that remains to be seen. But then we get this panel of just the Harvey side of Two-Face, where you got just like the, I guess the non burn side. And Dent just goes, I'll go to prison, but you have to get Gilda help. She needs to know this. Do we have a deal? So Two-Face is willing to go to jail, but he wants Gilda to get help because he's really well aware that, she's not right. And Batman, the first thing he asks is, Jim, like, this one's on you. Like, what do you think? And Gordon says, Harvey Dent, you're under arrest. And with like those like, sincere eyes that it looks like Two-Face has, you'll get her help, Jimbo. Promise me that. And Jim Gordon is just like, don't Jimbo me. We're long past that. And I kind of like that because, like, deep down, I think, Jim Gordon, Batman, and Harvey Dent had a good relationship, especially in the Long Halloween. And you almost, they were really, both Jim and Batman were devastated that what happened to Harvey Dent. And this is such a beautiful Harvey Dent story and tragic. And I mean, when I mean beautiful, like, it's well written, but it's such a tragic story of three people who were friends, and you saw one just go down a path and, make wrong decisions after wrong decisions. And, as much as I'm sure Jim misses Harvey, he knows that he's like, what Dent has done as, there's no turning back. You've taken his son away from him, has broken up his family, and there's been just too much chaos for Jim Gordon to even consider being friends with Harvey Dent. So that's why it's like, don't Jimbo me. You're not my friend anymore. You're the enemy, and you're under arrest. So, when it's like, Batman here, where Robin's like, he says, like, to Batman, like, you wanted Catwoman here, and that's why you meant we have everyone you need. And Batman needed to know whose side she was on. And then you got this beautiful one-page panel where it's got Two-Face, basically, of Gilda Dent on one side, and in the back of her cell, which was really cool in my opinion. You got all of, pretty much a lot of good with Harvey Dent. The new DA wins, and you have wedding photos of them getting married, and then you have a picture of Two-Face in Gilda Dent's cell, and then behind the cell of Two-Face is, it's blank, it's dark, but Two-Face is just like, Gilda. And even though that their love is blinding, and Gilda played both sides, I still think that she was just as much bipolar and had two sides to her as Harvey Dent did with Two-Face. And then you got this pretty cool meeting. It seems like some time has passed because there's snow all of a sudden now on the rooftops, and it's between Catwoman and Batman. And she just goes like, I've always liked this view, and I have to go back to Rome for a while. Some old and new business, and you can tell that the chapter's slowly closing, but it almost kind of leaves something open for Catwoman. I don't know. We'll talk about that in a second. But Batman wants to know, like, why the hell did you shoot yourself in the leg? And she just goes, I wasn't going to let Holiday take a shot at me and hit me elsewhere. So he's like, wounding each victim and putting them in Arkham where it was safe until it wasn't. So I keep wondering how Gilda Dent just happened to be held up at gunpoint by Mario. So whose side were you on? And I love the response from Catwoman. You're the detective. Someday you'll figure it out. Like, yeah, come on, man. And you'll either understand or get mad. And I make you mad a lot, don't I? I love that response from Catwoman. I think Loeb writes Catwoman exceptionally well. in my opinion. So with that said, so it's like Batman's like, why do you say I was on the wrong side? And Catwoman just says, like, listen, you are either gonna like be on the side of organized crime and or with the freaks, whatever side. But it's like, Catwoman goes, say what you want, but when this town was run by organized crime, things were well organized. And then as soon as the Joker, Two-Face, Scarecrow showed up, there was chaos. So a lot of things just started breaking apart. So I think with Catwoman's point of view, Batman was on the side of, it seemed like the mobs and gangsters, but not really. When she thought, like, you should be against the freaks and take them all out and at least be on the side of the gangsters. And, he really wasn't. But Batman stood for on the other side, that third side with Jim Gordon, on the side of the law to take them all out and have Gotham City clean. But Batman says, like, you think I brought this to Gotham? And Catwoman asks, like, why does it matter what I think? Because Batman really does care about, Catwoman and what she does think. And then Catwoman responds, like, all that matters is that, what you saw and realized that they could either dye their hair green or wear sandbags on their head, and they had freedom like never before. And she's like, I don't become Catwoman with to be your opposite. She's like, to be honest with you, you inspired me to be whoever I wanted to be. And yes, I thought we'd be together. And there's that like little flirtation of like, yeah, listen, because fans enjoy Batman and Catwoman being together. And there's that little closeness like of them throughout the story. And Batman's response, rather than responding to like, listen, yeah, I think we should be together too, his response is very Batman-esque, where he's like, I have to go. Kind of reminds me of Val Kilmer at the top of the building where he's talking to Dr. Chase Meridian. Anyway, she goes, you take care of yourself. The city needs you. And as I'm reading this page, and I remember thinking it, and I'm thinking it right now, it's you can feel that every little bow is being tied up, and you just don't want anything to close, and you want this chapter to close. But then we get some reoccurring iconic panels, including where at the bottom of the page you have, I remember on the Long Halloween, Batman gets in front of the bat signal and goes, gentlemen. But very similar of what Tim Sale drew in the Long Halloween. But it happens again. But this time we have 3 different men on the top. 2 are the same, with Jim Gordon flashing the bat signal. And in internal dialogue, it says, in the end, the Long Halloween saga is about one man, not Carmine the Roman Falcone, who gave the war that name, or Jim Gordon, who rose up the ranks from cop to commissioner. And it was not even about me, but it was about Harvey Dent, and it really was a Harvey Dent story. But anyway, let me continue with the story. And it's like, Robin gets up to the rooftop, sees Jim, and he says to Jim, he'll be here. He had to make a stop. And Jim just says, I guess I'll need to get used to the Robin answering the call. And Robin just says, listen, it's just Robin, not the Robin. And Jim just has like a nice little smirk. He's like, oh, is it? I thought, well, sometimes he goes by the Batman. So I think we would know each other better. You'll see how much more we're not alike. And that's what Robin's response was. And Jim's just like, I look forward to that. I hope for years to come. And Batman's just standing in front of the bat signal and says, it will be, with his arms crossed. So iconic. Love this panel. But, in the end, then you have Jim say, it's been long enough. Well, we've had our share of losses and gains. I thought it was important to tell you that it was and always will be worth it. And Robin says, Is it always going to be like this? Gangs with their guns, freaks with their whatevers, trying to bring it all down. And Batman says, that is why we're here. I believe in Jim Gordon, I believe in Robin, and I believe in Batman. Oh, I just got chills reading that. And the final page is like an internal dialogue where it says, I miss Harvey Dent. And Batman says, I believe in Gotham City. And then you have this beautiful panel where Batman dead center looking out with Jim Gordon to his left, Robin to his right. And it's so excellently executed. And at the bottom it says Loeb, Sale, and Pals with a big heart and just says the last Halloween. Man, I have thoughts about this. Very sad that this is all over, and like, you know, you can't just continue this awesome story, The Long Halloween. But, you know, where do I begin? And I guess the first question I'm gonna ask myself is, and share with you guys, is should this story have continued? I think that it needed to have a bow that where it had an ending, and I think that The Long Halloween was and is a Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale story without a doubt. The friends part, and it's like, you know what, you can really look at this where issue 0 had Tim Sale draw it, and then the rest was with all the friends that Tim Sale loved and adored, right? Like, these are all artists that wanted to commemorate Tim Sale's memory and be part of this, and each one had a huge contribution to The Last Halloween. Personally, I would have preferred if we had a couple of artists rather than constantly changing, but I get why. They didn't replicate Tim Sale. They just honored him in many ways, and it still had that noir feel. But I really did admire, you know, what the artist did, and I'm glad that The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween is the final chapter of this incredible storyline that Jeff Loeb just knows how to write Batman, plain and simple. And it was a story not just about Harvey Dent, but it was the closing the chapter of what is the crime families, and moving on and letting loose the freaks of Gotham. And as we remember, this was supposed to be a year 2 story. And really, the only one who really wrote about Carmine the Roman Falcone, other than Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, was none other than Frank Miller himself. And Frank Miller gave that blessing to these guys to use those characters, right? So yeah, like, you know, and now you have Tim Sale gone, and you know, it would be a tragedy as fans for us not to get this closing chapter, right? Like, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale started working on it together, you know, and I know it was early on in the early stages, but you know, they did do that prelude, and I know that there was a couple of issues written at that point where Tim Sale had, you know, a contribution to it, and you know, it would be a tragedy if they didn't close up that chapter. And as fans, like, selfishly, we wanted this, and selfishly I still want the story to continue, but I don't. You know, certain things just need to be, you know, where the book just closes and we're satisfied with it, because there's so many other incredible Batman stories. And especially, like, you know, when I think of The Long Halloween, you know, you cannot, it's synonymous with Tim Sale. And I think, you know, we can still get Batman stories written by Jeff Loeb. We are with Hush too. So it's not like we need a continuation of this Long Halloween. It doesn't feel right, you know. It's like this Strange Apparitions, you know, storyline with Marshall Rogers and Steve Englehart. Like, I would never want that to continue, because Marshall Rogers has passed on, and I think that whole story arc, and I think they have, like, there's two basic chapters, and you know, they think there could have been a third, but it just doesn't feel right with Marshall Rogers not on the project. So I don't know. I'm on the side of, this is a perfect way to end it. My thoughts on the issue, I'd give it an 8 out of 10, A minus. I really like how action packed it was. The way the thing is, because there was a couple breaks, and I think that this whole story will read way better collected. We're reading it along issue by issue, and there were some connecting parts, like some where I'm like, well, did it really make sense to take away Jim Gordon's kid? I don't know, because there's some story parts where I'm just like, was that necessary? And but the way they wrap it up, as fans, I think we were very. I love the way that Gilda Dent had such a big role in the storyline, and it's such a big character in the Batman mythos now, with just only really a couple stories with Batman the Long Halloween, and even though her name is kind of mentioned in Dark Victory, and then you have the last Halloween, she's such a big name when it comes to her and Harvey Dent. But this is a Harvey Dent story, and it's a tragedy, and it's beautiful all in one. And yeah, like I just my thoughts around this particular issue here, as I said, giving it an 8 out of 10. I love the way this was drawn. Becky Cloonan and Matteo Scalera really brought these issues home. The panels, there's so many good ones. I think when my favorite one would have to be the 2-page spread where it has the freaks at the top, the monsters at the bottom. I'm not going to deny, I'm really liking the comic booky Robin with his little Robin cycle going through the streets. And then, of course, you got the Batman in front of the bat signal his arms were crossed, as I'm flipping through all these pages. And as a comic book fan, this is just, I'm eating it all up. But yeah, it was hard to kind of, because you could tell that there was certain bows that were tied up, Easter eggs that were left behind. Really, whose side was Catwoman on? It's hard to really say. Personally, I think she's on the mob side, because it's you kind of she's saying you're letting, because of you, there's these freaks. And at least with organized crime, it was organized and there was a little bit more order. And then you have guys like Joker who's just going to cause chaos and you don't know what to expect of him, right? She's not wrong, right? I really do believe that. But there's some big themes that were just left. Like the whole transition from organized crime to Gotham's underworld, where Gotham, the criminal landscape shifts from organized crime to absolute chaos. You're not gonna know what to expect from someone like Jonathan Crane, turning into Scarecrow and putting fear gas. Would you rather that, or would you rather a mobster? Or Joker, who just has no one that he loves, is just all about chaos and is unpredictable. It's hard. But is it Batman's fault? Absolutely not. Do you think it's Batman's fault? It's more about who wins the war between the freaks and the mobsters, in my opinion. You got the character evolution where Two-Face evolves quite a bit, but there's still a little bit of Harvey Dent in him, and he does deeply care about Gilda Dent. And it's he's looking and making sure that Jim Gordon gets help for Gilda and through it all. And he's Two-Face just says listen, I killed Mario Falcone, and he did what he was set out to do. And he's like, okay, arrest me. Everyone saw. The one thing was, I think that the last couple of issues went away from was more of the detective work, and is a lot more action heavy, which I'm not complaining about. I love that Batman the Long Halloween series is a noir detective series, and I want to make sure that did it really honor the whole noir grassroots of Batman the Long Halloween? Yes, but did they go away from it? I almost have to reread this whole series again, but there was a lot of detective work. I'm just not sure that the last 2 issues did that. But I really do like what themes were introduced in this issue, and I feel like there was so much that was dropped, and I'm like I can't remember what happened because I've read this so long ago, literally a year ago, and there's a lot of secrets and things that are revealed, especially from issue 9 and issue 10, that makes me want to go back and like there's like the whole thing with Gilda Dent in this love triangle with Mario Falcone and Harvey Dent. Like, it makes me second guess. I'm like, whose side was Gilda on? And is she the only holiday killer? Was it Two-Face as well? Why was it that all the villains were getting shot? Right? Like, it makes no sense to me. But is it because Gilda wanted the freaks to go down in the safe space of... I don't know. I can't remember. Maybe someone else can entertain me and remind me. One interesting thing that I love that the lettering did in this story, where Batman's asking Two-Face, like, I want to speak to Harvey Dent, and Two-Face just responds saying Harvey Dent is dead. But the font is very different when Two-Face talks than compared to when Harvey Dent talks. And you have both at the top of the rooftop, one last time, Two-Face, Jim, and Batman. And it's like, I told you this wasn't over. And Batman just says, like, yes, it is. Like, you've been betrayed. And he's like, what? So Two-Face obviously gets ticked off and shoots Jim right in the hand. And Batman's like, Jim. And Two-Face is like, be quiet. Otherwise, next the boy gets it. And Batman says, like, both sides have lost. Everyone is either back in their cells or, here's not everyone. And then you got that clown who's got Gilda at gunpoint. And it's like, one side always wins. And she goes, look who I found. You're talking about the fall, Dent, the kidnapping, the shootings, the freaks, the masks, all of it. And then Gilda's like, Harvey, help me, please. And she's trying to, I guess, bring out Harvey. What she always wanted was her Apollo. And bury Two-Face, maybe, right? And then I notice he's like, wait, I noticed that face. You're the one who shot me. And the guy who shot, it's like that clown face, the guy who shot Dent. And it's like, I'll finish the job right now. And then Gilda's like, Harvey, please come back to me. Batman's like, lower your guns. And it's like, we don't want Gilda to get hurt. And then he's like, Gilda. And I don't know. She goes, I love you. But I can't tell who Gilda is saying I love you to. Is it to Mario or is it to Two-Face? Like, that's what's confusing to me. But I noticed that the font goes where it's like, bat stop, I'll surrender, I'll confess. And all of a sudden it kind of just shifts towards like what feels like, okay, here's the Harvey Dent side coming out. And I noticed that change. I don't know if you guys picked up on it. It's very subtle. The question's still up in the air for me, though. And even though we, as readers, are meant to, kind of led to believe that we're on the side of yes, is Selina Kyle a Falcone? And even though we're not told, I want to say yes, but I'm kind of curious what you guys think. I mean, like, these are like questions that are still left up in the air, and I'm like, is Jeff Loeb gonna write a When in Rome Part 2? She is going back and she's going to find something out. Like, what is it? And, I'm not holding my breath, but it kind of leaves us as a reader talking about it. But it also leaves me as a reader, which I love. This is this part of the story that I love, and I can't wait to read it collected, is I find that even with movies is when there's questions and it's like maybe the writer left certain Easter eggs for us to discover each time upon reading it, and we learn more and more and dissecting this story. And I feel like this is one of those stories where you dissect it and learn more and more. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure, but I did love what Jeff Loeb did with this, and must have been difficult writing without his friend and coming. And it seems like when you think about Tim Sale art, like, it's so unique, so distinct, and just iconic and synonymous with The Long Halloween. And I love it. I absolutely love the way he draws Batman and everyone in it. pretty much. We're gonna miss Tim Sale. Like, he's beautiful. He does an excellent job. Kudos though to everyone that stepped up to the plate to, illustrate in this. I'm sure it's not easy, right? You're kind of living in the shadow of Tim Sale, and it's like, we're always going to compare because it is a long Halloween story. But that's pretty much it for me. I really, really did like Batman The Last Halloween. Overall, as a whole, I'm not sure how you guys felt. I hope you guys do pick up the issues. I know that the collected edition should be coming out in January. And it's going to be like you know what else is coming out in January is the Absolute Batman The Long Halloween, which I'm definitely going to be picking up. It's an absolute must. So kind of curious, and I'm sure, I hope that, if and when, I'm sure it's not if, but matter of when, The Last Halloween comes out with an Absolute edition, those answers are revealed to us, the readers, that we're asking, But with that being said, I think that this is going to be the end of this episode. And there's quite a few exciting episodes coming up. This has been an absolute pleasure to cover Batman The Last Halloween. As a lifelong fan, I started reading The Long Halloween when I was in high school. Just because my library had it by fluke. And, bittersweet for me. I'd say probably 20 years now since I first read The Long Halloween. And, to see it wrapped up and be able to collect each issue and go along with the ride for the first time. And I loved it, really enjoyed it. I'm old enough to buy my own comic books now, and it's just been fantastic to kind of join along in the ride. And for you guys, I'm grateful that you guys were able to join with me as well. Now, that's not going to be it for Jeff Loeb issues, as coming out next week, we got... Well, in the time of this recording, really, it's going to be coming out November 12th. We have Batman Hush 2. I think it's issue 4 that's coming out. I've lost count. Talking about breaks. My God. Talk about delays galore. So I should really go back and reread those stories or those issues. But that being said, thank you very much for joining me on this ride. And if you have any comments, questions, feel free to shoot me an email at beyondthebatsignal@gmail.com. It's going to be all in the show notes and X/Twitter, where you can follow me along at Beyond Bat Signal. And also, congratulations to Bill Beer of the Bat Pod podcast. He was the winner for the monthly contest, the Batman The Long Halloween monthly contest. Thank you very much for rating, reviewing, and just retweeting. That's all you had to do. And it went a long way. I know it came down to him and Pete, and he actually was the one who won, so I'll be sending him a prize pack. So with that being said, this is Beyond the Bat Signal, and we are signing off.